Hello. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order, please. And this is the regular meeting of council on Monday, July 20th, 2026. And it's being held in the council chambers at 1394 Pine Avenue in Trail, BC, and also live via Microsoft Teams commencing at 2 o'clock today for the committee of the whole, and immediately followed by a closed council meeting and reconvening at 6 p.m. for the regular council meetings. Meetings are recorded and published on the city's YouTube site as well at trail.ca YouTube. So adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the regular agenda? Thank you. A seconder, please. All those in favor? And that was carried. So a resolution to move or resolve into the committee of the whole, please. And the seconder? And that all those in favor? And that was carried as well. So we have a number of delegations today, so we'll move right into that. First up, we have tech operations and the strategic metals production announcement. Today we have General Manager Matt Perilla and Richard Dean with us today. Thank you, Matt. Yeah.
I don't get to sit anymore. I have to stand. Okay. All right. Thanks, Mayor and Council. So what we wanted to do is just take the opportunity just to provide a quick update for broader Council, just after the announcement that occurred on July the 7th. Also to just explain how the overall initiative will work, timelines, things like that. To be honest with you, a bit of expectation management more than anything else. So just a recap, what was a pretty exciting day and a culmination of a significant amount of work, both locally and at our corporate office with the federal government. You had the Canada Growth Fund announced through the Critical Minerals Accelerator that day on site was an agreement with Teck Resources to invest potentially up to $400 million in our site, specifically for the advancement of critical minerals development. Most of the products mentioned we do produce already today, so we will be producing more of them. However, one was added as a potential new product for us, that being gallium. Also in accordance with that was Teck reinforcing what was stated during the Anglo-Teck merger announcement, but also up to $850 million investment in Trail, both through the Strategic Metals Initiative, but also other modernization activities, which I've talked to Council a bit about in the past. That into itself was an agreement reached by both parties that's still being worked through with an expected close sometime in Q4 is what we're trying to iron out, the specific details with the Canada Growth Fund on that. What that investment is a royalty-like structure. So there will be an expectation of some form of recoup by the federal government, where that's the pieces that we're still negotiating now. Just to make sure that is there. But what I do want to reinforce is this is a significant investment, not only in our site, in this region, and locally here in the city. That was a pretty proud day to be able to see that, and something that has not occurred at our site in the past. So a lot of work still to do, but a lot of work that went into that. The Strategic Metals Initiative is about a 5 to 6 year project. And it's a multitude of projects. So it's roughly 10 to 12 different discrete initiatives. For the most part, locally, you won't notice a difference in the landscape. Like, we're not talking about constructing dozens of new buildings. We're talking about enhancing and increasing capacity of products that we do produce today. One of the later phase projects would envision a new installation of a new furnace. That is later, that'd be 2030 to 2032 timeframe, but everything in before that will be smaller scale projects over each of those consecutive years. And through that whole time, we'll be gradually increasing our production profile, specifically of germanium going forward. For those that didn't get a chance to read the announcement, I think something as well that the city should be well aware of in the region is the Teck here in Trail. We are the largest ex-China producer of primary source germanium in the world. And we have been for some time, and we intend on keeping that market share, as well as expanding the ability to do so at the behest of our nation, as well as the economic advantage that product has. So I think that's a pretty significant thing as well to put in the feather in the cap of everyone within the region to know about. Our CEO, Jonathan Price, talked a lot about hundreds of construction jobs. So if you can imagine over 5 to 6 years, what we're trying to do is not have the peaks and the valleys. So over that time would be like we would envision a steady sort of construction workforce, and then ultimately there will be some additional permanent jobs. They will not be hundreds of new jobs, but somewhere in the neighborhood of, let's call it, 40 to 80 plus or minus is what we're thinking. And there'll be a range of jobs, both operations, maintenance through trades, as well as some technical careers as well. And it'll all be transpiring over that same timeline. So what I wanted to make sure that council was aware of is this isn't like September 2026, it's go and a whole bunch of people are embarking into the region. That's not the case. We will be slow and steady, but we will be increasing every year, and we will be looking to implement these initiatives. As well, we do have a capital allocation framework at Teck, so all of these investments, irregardless of where the source of funding may be coming from, still has to meet Teck's threshold for capital investment. So we're moving along with that, and we have been the whole time. So, and all of the projects are advancing in different stages, and they have been, irregardless of getting to this agreement announcement. Engineering has progressed on all of them. Some are more, we'll call them shelf ready or further advanced than others. And we could see some of the first projects start to actually be physically constructed within the existing footprint sometime late next year, with the aim that we will have a number of them installed by 2028, end of the year. Yeah, that's really what we wanted to talk about. I'm happy to take any questions from anyone, because I know it came across pretty quick. It was also limited in attendance purposely, working with the federal government. And but if there's any questions anyone has, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Matt. That does clear up some of the details that you're right, we didn't get that day. Thank you so much for that. I don't know if council has any questions at this time.
All right, great. And again, like always, happy to come back, whenever council would like an update on things. But thanks again for your time.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for being here. Okay, we're going to move on to the Ministry of Transportation and Transit. And today we have Ryan Oakley and Greg Kinner with us.
It's Kinnear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Council. So we're here today. We're asked to present our findings from a 2024 analysis, which was asked for special upgrades to a crosswalk on Avenue near the Colombo in the Gulch. Here today to kind of discuss that. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Did you catch most there, all, or some of that? Okay, sounds good.
Hey, Mayor and Council, thanks for having us. I'm Ryan Oakley, I'm the district engineer. I work with Greg in the Nelson office, and I'm sure you're aware we're the owners of the highway, and we take care of the infrastructure on the highway, including crosswalks, which we're going to talk about today. So in the Gulch, there's 3 crosswalks. Actually, before I talk about the Gulch, I'll just talk about kind of high level how the ministry makes decisions about crosswalks on our highways, if that's all right. And I think it's really important to note right off the bat that crosswalks are a very emotional topic for communities. We're very much aware of that. And I think one of the reasons for us having our engineering warrants and our guidelines is to help us as public servants and owners of the highway make good engineering decisions on what type of crosswalks go where and why. It can be a difficult conversation to have, though, because it can seem very cold. But again, there's kind of a purpose for that, because I think if we made decisions on traffic control devices based on pure emotion, things would be pretty chaotic on the roads. So just wanted to bring that up right off the bat. So with the engineering warrants, we kind of have 2 classes of crosswalks. We've got the passive crosswalk, which is just the marked and signed crosswalk. Sometimes they have overhead signs. And then that's the passive crosswalk. The active crosswalk would have a push button for the pedestrians, which might activate flashing lights or a traffic signal. You guys in the Kootenays probably know there's not a lot of active crosswalks in our area. There's the pedestrian signal up in Warfield, and then there's the special crosswalk in Warfield, and there's a special crosswalk in Castlegar as well. So most of our crosswalks in the district are passive. So in those crosswalks, the pedestrians make eye contact and either wait for a gap in traffic or wait for vehicles to stop. And that's all like per the Motor Vehicle Act, the responsibilities of the drivers and the pedestrians. One of the reasons for the engineering warrants that we have is to manage the expectations or work with the expectations of drivers as well as pedestrians to make sure the pedestrians can cross safely. So if changes are made that go against those expectations, we can see unintended negative consequences of safety. And we've documented, well, I shouldn't say we've documented that. We have documentation in the engineering field that shows that when those expectations aren't met, and that could be way more signage that's needed that's distracting, or instances where pedestrians press the button and they think their job is done now and they can just cross the road whenever they want. And those types of things are not thought about often when there's requests to increase a crossing to an activated crosswalk. So we're in the ministry, we're very cautious about where we install activated crossings for that reason. We're very cautious not to do too many of them to kind of change that relationship between drivers and pedestrians. Which I think as a pedestrian and as a father, like most people that cross a crosswalk would prefer to have a push button and flashing lights. But unfortunately, that's not exactly how it works. So with the Gulch, we did do traffic counts in April 2024. We measured the vehicles on the highway as well as the pedestrian volumes. And when we do our warrants, the vehicle traffic, we look at the hourly peak, which gives us an indication of the number of crossing opportunities, which is what we're trying to measure with that vehicle count. So the more opportunities there are to cross a highway or a road without having to stop traffic, kind of like the more safe and the better it is for pedestrians. As the volumes get higher, that risk becomes a lot higher, obviously. And then we measure the pedestrian usage. We also measure the pedestrian usage based on age. So the younger age and the older age are more vulnerable populations. So we pay attention to that. In our warrants on the 3 crosswalks, the traffic volumes were considerable, and we know that relative to other highways in the area that the Gulch and Highway 3B sees considerably more traffic volume, but the pedestrian count was quite low. And I know that at different times of day and different days of the week, that traffic volume can change. The engineering warrant is kind of like it's a spot count in time. So the numbers are what they came out to be. I think there are opportunities in the Gulch potentially to kind of like impact the relationship between the pedestrians and the vehicles. In other communities, we've either built or we've allowed to have bump outs built. Nelson's a good example of that, and it just shortens the crossing length, which decreases the exposure risk for the pedestrians. It increases their visibility while they're still protected on the bump out. Obviously, pedestrians kind of hiding behind parked cars is a bit of an issue, probably in the Gulch for sure. So there's opportunities there. But maybe I'll pass it over to Greg because I've been talking for a little bit.
Or does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Anything Ryan is up?
Sorry, does anyone from council have questions? Councillor Benson, go ahead.
Just to clarify, the crosswalk in Warfield that you're talking about isn't the one by the school, it's the one up on the highway crossing to where the gas station is?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's considered a special crosswalk, so it's a push button with the lights on top. And that was installed not necessarily based on the pedestrian volumes that were there, but when at that time, what was looked at was the grades coming down that hill and the sight distance in particular. So one of the differences between that spot and the Gulch is the Gulch has a really good sight lines with being on a tangent and a little bit of a less of a grade. The tangent and the straight section of the Gulch is like it's good that there's good sight lines, but also it does increase the speeds a little bit with the vehicles. So it's kind of it's a tricky one that way. But yeah, that's why the Warfield one has a push button.
Thank you. You answered my second question, so
Yeah.
thanks.
Councillor Cashel.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. Were evening events and weekend events and special functions at the Colombo Lodge included in the analysis?
Not that particular analysis. We're aware that there's times when a crosswalk could get extra busy with special events. Generally, with our engineering warrants and our just even traffic control devices in general, we don't look at special kind of one-off cases where there might be a significant increase in traffic volume or pedestrian volume to make the engineering warrant. What we usually look at is what's typical.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple more questions through the chair. I want to acknowledge Sherry Hannick in our chamber today on our audience, and he sent me some information. And just a point of interest was that recently they had a founders banquet at the Colombo Lodge, and over 250 people attended. So it does draw a significant amount of pedestrian traffic, as many of those folks have to park across the street. And they're anticipating 66 to 80 different functions at the Colombo Lodge this year. So I just want to make a point of that. Just another quick question here. Given that loaded tractor trailers, and my understanding is there's literally hundreds of loaded tractor trailers coming through the Gulch every day, it requires substantially longer stopping distance than passenger vehicles. Was this risk reflected in your analysis?
It's in consideration. So yeah, there's engineering judgment that would take into consideration things like that for sure. Sight lines, the grade, the truck use. The warrants that we had done in April 2024 were more of the data side of things with the traffic volume count and the pedestrian count. I will say our engineering warrant guideline for crossings is a little bit dated, and we're updating it, and it's in draft. So there's a bit of a frustrating thing with us practitioners right now where we'd like to use the new manual because things have evolved over the years, but we're still obligated to use the existing one. And in the new manual, there is more consideration for those other types of factors.
If I could speak to the special events, like operationally, how we typically address that is we work with the event organizers, and if there was a need.
Could you speak into the mic, please?
Sorry,
Thank
I'm
you.
so bad at that. Yeah, I was just saying, operationally, we'd work with the event organizers and work on a special events permit. And if there was a need to come up with like a parking, traffic management, or pedestrian plan, we'd work with the event organizers and implement something like that. So maybe with that number of events planned, we'll want to work together with the Colombo on how that might look.
And just my last question. Given the combination of seniors that you've already alluded to using this crossing area, reoccurring, of course, community events at the Colombo, which we've identified, and I want to emphasize this one, the significant heavy truck traffic on this portion of Highway 22, and the community's ongoing concern, what would need to change for the ministry to reconsider installing pedestrian activated crossing at this location?
So I think based on the information we have now and relating that back to our current guideline and our practice, as well as like, again, looking at like the bigger picture across the province, the crosswalks that are there meet the current guidelines. That said, I think there's an opportunity in the Gulch for a potential change in the cross section of how the Gulch looks and feels, because there's quite a lot of room out there with all the parking in the 3 lanes, and the 3 lanes are quite wide. And so we've worked with municipalities in the past. So Castlegar's a good example. Roslyn's a good example where under their initiative, they wanted to reconfigure the corridor to be more pedestrian accommodating. And it's not just the crosswalks and the push button. It is the parking plan. It is the widths of things. It is the bump outs. So I think from our perspective, there's a potential opportunity to do something different in the Gulch. The concern is if we just changed one or multiple crosswalks to the push button crosswalks, I would not guarantee that it's now all of a sudden safer. So one issue that I think of, if there's a large amount of people coming at once to the Colombo, one of the issues is with the push buttons, you come up, you push the button, the lights go on and you cross. It's timed so that if someone comes up right behind you and pushes the button, it won't go on yet because it wants to clear highway traffic first. But a lot of people, when I've seen this, they'll think, well, I press the button, my job's done, the lights must be on, we're good, and then they go walk out, but it's not. So it's one of those things where it just doesn't guarantee safety. So we have to be very mindful of what we do and when and why. Yeah.
And just final question through the chair. Just so for clarity, it would take an initiative set by city staff to basically warrant further action on making these crosswalks safer. Is that what I'm getting? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think what Ryan said. Crosswalks, these crosswalks are adequate.
Sorry, can I
Again,
get,
I'm
thank
so
you.
bad.
No, that's
I
okay.
apologize.
We just want
Yeah.
to be able to hear everything you're saying.
Based on the way that we look at crosswalks and everything we've seen, these crosswalks are adequate for the type of use they get now. So maybe an increase in pedestrian usage for whatever reason may warrant another look at it. But as it stands now, the crosswalks that are in place are sufficient for the volumes, the type of pedestrians, and the amount of pedestrians.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Martin, you had a question?
Thank you, through the chair. Now, you talked about the new guidelines. I got two questions. The first is, when are the new guidelines going to come into play?
I can't tell you. They're in draft. I've read them and reviewed them, but the timeline's unknown for us.
Okay. The second question, you're saying that the crosswalks are adequate for the numbers of folks crossing at this point. What about the consideration of the speed going through the Gulch? Because sometimes it seems pretty fast.
Yeah, the speed is always an issue. So that's one of those things where if there was a reconfiguration of how the cross section of the Gulch was, you might see a speed reduction. So an example is it's the same highway up in Rossland, and the through speeds in Rossland are a lot slower. Do they still complain of speeding? Yes, they do. But it's certainly slower. If I was going to measure the speeds, it's certainly slower. One of the issues that we get, so I would my professional recommendation would be to do a reconfiguration of the Gulch. I think there's room for it. I think there'd be a lot of improvement potential, but it's kind of the city's appetite. So it's that. I don't think a lot would change with just a couple of signs. That said, it does also, there's the engineering side of it and road design side of it, which is one component, and then there's enforcement as well. So unfortunately, it'd be great if everyone drove the speed limit and everyone yielded to pedestrians, then we'd have no problem. So unfortunately, there's some expectation or hope that engineering will solve all of the problematic drivers out there, and that's just not. There's always kind of an enforcement component to it, and that's just kind of part of the equation as well. There's 3 E's in road safety. There's engineering, enforcement, and education, and so when all those are kind of working well in tandem, then things are good, and we take care of the engineering side of it. But we do know, again, if I could, well, I didn't say this yet, but I've said it to lots of people, if I could put up a $200 sign and be like, this is now safe, I would do it. But we know that that's just not the full, that just doesn't answer the question completely. And I think one of the concerns can be with crosswalks that aren't used very often. And we see this in the Kootenays because our roads are generally not, our communities are smaller, their roads aren't as big as some of the bigger centers. As a driver, you could drive that road 100 times and not see a pedestrian in the crosswalk. So you just start to not notice them if one's there. But as a pedestrian, you're there 100% of the time, right? So that people aren't paying attention to you. And And unfortunately, it then becomes, there's an onus on the pedestrian then to like make sure to make the eye contact, to make sure someone's stopped as they're crossing the road. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Hanson, please.
Thank you, through the chair. So a couple questions in regards to Warfield, where you turn in past the school, where there is the active crosswalk there at the light. The one that they have, that's because it's a city street. It's Warfield of Warfields that has the flashing one inside, because there's a flashing one inside right in front of the school.
Yeah, that's theirs.
Okay.
I believe, like down Bingay Road.
Yeah, just
Eden
on
Road.
Bingay
Yeah, yeah.
there,
So
yeah.
that's that's their jurisdiction.
Doesn't have to have any authority through you to add that there.
No.
Okay.
Right? No.
And then same with Up Washington, same thing where the skate
Yeah.
park is over to the school. They have a little small flashy
That's
one
right.
there because it's theirs. That's why they
Yeah.
can do it. So the question that I guess I would have is that if there was, as you said, some sort of reconfiguration, if there was bump outs added specifically at that crosswalk, just so that a pedestrian could stand further past the vehicles. Because when people are at the bottle depot and all through there, there is times you cannot see a pedestrian standing there. If you've got a big truck or if you've got, they've got their semis that go and unload or take all their things. So what would the steps be if we ended up wanting to work with you guys to add just 2 bump outs where that crosswalk was?
Kind of depends on the complexity. So bump outs can be quick and easy and a really good win. One consideration might be drainage, like just to make sure that the drainage isn't affected or managed well. But it could be a relatively easy engineering solution. A couple of good examples. One particular good example that kind of reminds me of the Gulch is Stanley Street in Nelson on Vernon. Also, before it was changed, before we built the bump outs, it was a really wide cross section. There was a lot of parking on both sides. We had lots of complaints. So very similar traffic volumes, very high traffic volumes, high pedestrians as well, actually. But we built bump outs first and then an overhead sign. And that resolved most of the concerns. If you stand out on that bump out, people stop. And I think that's one of the biggest concerns with pedestrians is like, I have to stand there and it's car after car. Like most pedestrians know, they don't just think it's my right of way and they just walk in front of whatever. They wait, and it's kind of the waiting and people don't see you. That's kind of the problem. So if you have that bump out, again, you're now standing closer to the lane and you might get more compliance and more yielding, and then you can walk safely. So that was an example. And one of those, over the overhead signs with the LED downlights that you've seen in some communities here. And yeah. They're good because they're still passive. So it's still that eye contact between pedestrians and drivers to kind of make it all work. But it adds that extra bit of illumination, that extra sign. So there's a little bit of extra attention paid by drivers. And they're kind of the skeleton of what the special crosswalk would be if we had activated a push button and activated lights. So it's kind of like it's ready for that next phase if needed. If things change, if there's pedestrian use change, if there's traffic volume change, it could be added. And we've built a number of those over the years, and none of them have kind of needed to turn into a more active use. And it's not that we're against the push buttons or the traffic lights, but again, like we just know that it doesn't mean pure safety just by having them. And in fact, a good example is with Warfield. Like they've got the highest level, which is the signal, the pedestrian signal at their school. And they complain about it all the time. Like it's still an issue. Like even if you have the full traffic lights, because people will run a red light, people will still speed or whatever. So we're careful not to overuse them in the province on our highways because we don't want people to get kind of immune to all of it. But even when we have installed them, it's still.
So I guess my question would be, what would it take to get to that step, having the overhead with that, as opposed to doing the full push button? If you think that is more adequate for alleviating some of that concern, acknowledging that, the ignorance of us here, that we know people are going to have to look and they still have to follow proper roadway, safeway, all of that. Drivers' responsibility, walkers' responsibility, pedestrians. But like, what would it take to just get something moving forward so that the community feels safer, the kids walking across feel safer? Like if we were to go with that skeleton, with the downlight, with the flat, like over top, as opposed to an actual.
Yeah, I think the overhead LED could work well. So in our warrants, it's still considered a signed and marked crossing, so it would meet our warrant for today. The issue I see in the Gulch right now is the infrastructure would be in the sidewalk, and there's just not. I don't think there's just like enough room right now. It'd be significant, but if the bump out was built, that creates the space for that infrastructure. It's a fairly large base that goes in to make sure it doesn't fall over and all that stuff. So again, that's something that we would work with if the city wanted to like develop a plan with us. We would work on those things. Yeah. Yeah.
We're happy to. If anyone wants to reach out and start those discussions, like we're definitely happy to start having those discussions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Benson.
Thank you, through the chair. So I guess two questions. Number one, just to clarify, so the current sidewalks do meet all standards, but the Gulch maybe as a whole could perhaps use maybe a study to make it a bit more pedestrian friendly. Is that?
Yeah, I would say it has the potential to. Yep.
Okay. And then no matter what, if it's something small, just focusing on that crosswalk or the Gulch as a whole, it will take some time. So I was wondering if you could just maybe provide a bit more information for perhaps the Colombo Lodge on what the special event permit, what would that provide in terms of making it safer for people?
Just some conditions and maybe like some additional traffic control and where people park during those events, just to ensure that, there isn't a steady flow of pedestrians or people parking against, that blocks pedestrians. But if the organizer of the Colombo, whoever's in charge of those special events, wants to reach out to us and discuss what that might look like, we can also explore that.
Councillor Benson, thank you. Has there ever been any consideration to making that highway single lane both ways, up and down? It would definitely slow down the traffic. It might be frustrating for some truck drivers, but it would slow down the traffic. And not only that, we could have angle parking on both sides of the street, creating more parking places. I don't know if that's ever been taken into consideration.
I would say yes, we'd be open to that. We've done that in, Warfield is a good example, and then Rossland, some of the changes there. The tricky thing with the Gulch is you've got the dual left turn lane coming from the intersection, so we just have to figure out the best way to transition to a single lane. But we'd be open to that idea for sure, and it would create a lot more space, and it would reduce the speed limit, especially heading up to Roslyn.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Cashel.
Thank you. Through the chair, just what would be the estimated cost of installing pedestrian crosswalk lights at, say, just that one site there at the Colombo?
Without like bump outs, like we were just going to install, and again, I don't know if there's enough room to just install them without the bump outs. Without them, probably about, I think about $25,000 to $35,000. Don't quote me on that. Stop writing. Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you. Greg, did you have anything else to add to this?
No, I think we covered anything I would have.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I thought we were getting into your category. Okay, is there anything else you wanted to say? No?
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move on to the Medical Arts Health Research and the DB Foundation for Health Research, the Memory Cafe.
She is online, so we'll just take a minute to get her settled online, and she can speak to council then.
Hello, this is Barb Stewart. I'm having trouble with my video. But can you hear my voice?
Sure. Okay, we're going to move on to the departmental verbal updates. And the first one we have up is the emergency services update. And today we have Staff Sergeant Dave Johnson here to talk about the Trail Mayor's Report for 2026, second quarter.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bring this a little closer to me, maybe. First time in your new chambers. That looks good. So thanks. Thanks for having me. I'll just jump right to the numbers. The second quarter mayor report covers from the months of April, May, and June. And it shows kind of what I had felt. It's been a busy start to this sort of fiscal year come April. Jump right down to we'll start with the total calls of service. We're at 1,036 for this year, where we were at 884 same time last year. So it kind of reflects how it's felt. It's been steady call volume, higher call volume, and we're working hard to keep on top of it. Some of the interesting numbers that we have here for Trail, we're going to see the numbers like the reported sexual offenses, 10 during this quarter as opposed to 2 last year. And speaking with some of my members and the victim service folk in my office, there's a few things that can account for that. There's been a rise in third-party reporting, whereas if someone's not comfortable coming to the police themselves, these sort of events can be reported through victim service, through community groups as well. So it's more of just an increase in reporting, not necessarily an increase in things happening. The drug investigation number, from 2 during the same period last quarter to 16 this quarter. I think that speaks to the recriminalization of drug use and sort of the enforcement that our members have been doing in the downtown area with visible drug use. So the property offenses is a pretty good jump for 138, but I think that's pretty standard across all sort of areas that the Trail RCMP polices. In the traffic and impaired, those were pretty steady numbers from this quarter to last quarter. And then in the community-related files, the files involving alcohol and drugs, there's a fairly significant increase in that, and I think that speaks to the increased sort of enforcement that our members have been doing in the Trail area, specifically the downtown core as well. So those are the numbers. Like I say, it was a fairly busy and active sort of quarter. I showed up here in February, and it's been pretty steady and consistent since then. Remains to be seen whether that's my issue or my fault or not. So there's debate in the office over that. So, but we're working towards dealing with these files on the resourcing front. Since I've been here, I arrived in February. We've had 2 recruits assigned to Trail, and we've had 1 lateral interest coming from North District. 1 recruit is here and will be finishing their 6-month training in August. The other recruit is showing up in approximately a week, so they'll start their 6 months of training. And then the lateral constable from up north has the process of relocation, of selling his and coming and purchasing a house here. So arrival time, that's kind of unknown. This last quarter, we had Corporal James Splinter retire, put in his retirement papers, and he retired. His last day was July 2nd. And the search for a replacement started as soon as staffing listened to my whining and complaining, and we've located and identified a local corporal from the Nelson area that will be transferring here. with a start date of mid to late August. So on the resourcing front, still have some of we had one transfer out to Houston, Constable Ryder Heim, after working in trail for 10 years, decided to take a transfer up north to Houston. So as far as hard vacancies that we have, it's riders. It is pretty much the one hard vacancy we have. We have a series of maternity and paternity leaves right now that create a resourcing kind of crunch, but that's just is what it is. That's just the process. So we have 2 of our NCOs are off long term. So out of the team of 5 NCOs, there's myself and a corporal working right now. But our new corporal lateral will be coming in, and that'll help with that. Couple of things. I was just at the community safety team meeting, discussed one of the new programs is the repeat property offender program. So it's, I'm gonna double check my notes here. So it's based on the process. There was a repeat violent offender intervention initiative that came out province-wide about a year ago, maybe a little more, and it focuses on identified repeat violent offenders. And when these people come back kind of into our sort of RCMP sort of privy, they're flagged with this repeat violent offender tag. There's a special prosecutor in every Crown office that deals with these repeat violent offenders. And there's a process to sort of how it goes through the courts, and the court will recognize that they're a repeat violent offender, and that process. It then triggers a whole bunch of recovery programs through probation and community corrections as well. And that program's been fairly successful in identifying sort of repeat violent offenders and holding them accountable and bringing them kind of into a more robust sort of probationary sort of supervisory sort of role. So what the province has done is they've applied that same theory to chronic property offenders and social disorder individuals. So this program kicked off. The hub for this area is out of the Castlegar office. So we have representatives that meet every month. We've all communities and RCP representatives from surrounding communities meet with probation, community corrections, and Crown. And they've established a list of identified chronic property and social disorder offenders. So what that does is that identifies these individuals to police, to probation, and to Crown, so that when they come through, through files or more repeat property offenses, then we as police then have a process to put in the report to Crown Council as they're been identified as chronic. And it already creates that sort of background sort of process when we put in a Crown. The Crown, they see them as tagged as a chronic property offender, then they'll know that there's a history, and that further prosecution or further programs upon release they kick in those types of things. These individuals are advised that they are designated as this chronic property offender, and it outlines to them that due to this designation that they've received, that they'll be required and offered further programs through probation and community corrections upon their release, with the ultimate goal of reducing the property crime and the social disorder aspect of it. Should they not choose to take these things, that'll be noted in sort of their chronic property offender intervention file, and will be taken into consideration through Crown and judges if that behavior continues. So it's, like I said, it's based on a very popular and a very effective repeat violent offender program, and they've just applied it to the social disorder and property crime. I am absolutely open to any questions, should any councillors have any.
Any questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Hanson, yeah.
It was like you want to rock, paper, scissors. Thank you so much. Just a couple of questions. In regards to the crime reduction unit, I know that that was something that got reestablished, but I think there had been some vacancies and some shuffling. So just wondering where we're at with bodies for crime reduction in the area.
Yeah, we maintained our plainclothes section member and our crime reduction member. We do pull on the crime reduction member to fill some gaps in frontline policing, because that's our first priority, is to have uniformed members ready to respond. But he's working really hard doing two jobs. I've asked a lot of him, and he's maintaining some of those crime reduction sort of roles and responsibilities, one of them being this chronic property offender sort of program and representative, as well as the repeat violent offender. So yeah, it's a bit of a hybrid right now when we go through a resourcing kind of a pinch, but we're cognizant. I don't like to take his time too much, but those are the things I balance.
Thank you. One more question. At what point do you guys get involved? So let's say there's someone with mental health concerns that's been reported, there's violent things that come up. At what point do you guys ever intervene or have meetings kind of with their people that need additional care, like care beyond what can be had in this area, right? If they needed some legalized care into some sort of space. Do you guys end up working with the mental health resources on individuals that do need that extraordinary amount of care that the area is unable to provide?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a member of the mental health team who comes and works with us in the office. He comes and visits us probably once a week. He's readily available, phone call, email for people that we find just to touch base with them to see, listen, is this person kind of in your working order? If not, you folks should really reach out, or what kind of resources can we provide to this person? Our interaction with mental health crisis is really just that. It's the crisis part of it, that long-term sort of ongoing care and supports. That's where we really lean on the healthcare professionals. And yeah, his card is all over the office. We hand out his card. All my members know to give him a call for his input.
Sorry, it was, I guess the question, I guess there's, in regards to people that should be in mandated care, like is there ever a point where you guys actually have to step in, provide documentation that there's been concerns with them to actually assist in getting people? Because I know that, the system is only as good as the communication between every group. And so do you work with the hospital, the doctors, mental health, and all of that for people that do have those repeat, meetings with them consistently about individuals, like you have those repeat violent offenders or individuals that have those issues about, hey, these guys have been getting into trouble, or there's some violent issues with these people, reports to their doctors saying they need more care than what they can be given out here, kind of thing?
Yeah, we run into those individuals through two ways, just through sort of community referrals with people calling us, what do I do? I'm worried about this person, that person, and the same thing, we'll reach out to the mental health care worker. And then there's also through the courts, right? Court mandated sort of treatment in that. So anytime we're sending a report off to Crown Counsel, we try and provide sort of all the facts and all the contributing factors. And if mental health is a serious contributing factor to this, then absolutely we work with Crown Counsel, highlight that this is probably a strong contributing factor, and some treatment through the court system should be considered. But that's as far as we can go. We've pushed that report through, and then after that, that's their process.
Councillor Cashel.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, staff. I have a question here that ties into already some information that we've looked at on your report. 2 drug charges for the quarter of 2025, and we're at 16 this year, and you mentioned it has something to do with decrim. So this question kind of just wants maybe a bit more of an expansion on that. Council formally requested enhanced enforcement and proactive foot patrols in several identified public spaces through a resolution adopted September the 29th, 2025. Of course, that was before your time. And a subsequent letter was sent to Sergeant Wasinowicz, the detachment commander at that time. Can you advise council and the public what actions have been taken in response to that request? What, if any, results have been achieved? And maybe we're already looking at some of that now. And what the RCMP's current position is regarding open drug use in our public spaces. And I ask this because people are asking me that see it and witness it daily, what to do. Should we call the police? And I think most folks, or a lot of folks, are becoming normalized to it, and they're either not going to our downtown parks or they're just not calling. And I'd just like to know what the RCMP's position is on what people should do when they see open drug use in our public spaces. Thank you.
Sure. I'll start off with the downtown visibility. I think from the time I got here and the panel interview I did with some of you folks, that was clearly a highlight and a challenge. Again, I tell everyone, I don't know if this helps or not, but it's a common challenge in communities all across BC. And trail, and I mean it as not comforting, but you know, that this isn't a problem unique to trail. So absolutely, the visibility in the downtown core. I think when I came here the first time I met with you folks, I talked about visibility and accountability. Those are still two of my main sort of focuses that I'm trying to get the trail RCMP and my members. That's kind of the approach I like to policing, right? Police need to be seen in the community. 90%, 95% of this community don't deal with us on a daily basis, so it's nice, and they typically like to see us just around. So yeah, foot patrols in the downtown core have been a focus of mine, working on some funding through some grants to apply some additional foot patrol, sort of additional patrols over the summertime. Working on that, but with the resourcing, I can set up funding and set up the shifts. It's a matter of getting people and boots to fill those shifts. So that's kind of that path that I'm working with locally. I do a foot patrol myself multiple times in a week, try to get down every day. I don't get down here every day, but I do. Took the opportunity in between my 2 meetings today and walked around in 27-degree heat, and it took me about 20 minutes to cool off in here. So I do appreciate the air conditioning in here. Moving forward, yeah, that recriminalization took effect. And like you say, I think those numbers sort of reflect that, the recrim, and it's a matter of reminding the members, shifting sort of that enforcement portion back to what it was like before. And that takes training. Some of these members, that's all they've ever known. They joined and they started their training during that decriminalization period. So it's mentoring from some of my senior members. It's demonstrating by myself, being out there. And yeah, if you see people openly using in drugs, then I would encourage people to call the police. The fact of the matter is open drug use in public is against the law. Now, what my members are going to do and how our response is going to be case specific. And the process, the shift to recriminalizing is also working with the people that we're serving, the people that we're addressing. We need to make sure that they know that these things have changed, and that the recriminalization is a learning process for them as well. And working with our community partners, all the folks that work hard downtown on the streets as well, and sort of educate those people as well, because they're the information providers and service providers to these folks as well, and just get that message kind of filtering through everyone. It's a modified approach, it's a slower approach. Day one of recriminalization, I wasn't going to have my members go out and then just revert to 2 years prior. I think it's a little bit more of an education process through it. And hopefully that the process kind of feeds in and those things should decrease. But if your question being what people should do if they see it, I would suggest that they call police.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Benson, did you have a question?
Thank you. Through the chair, staff. It sounds staff sergeant. Talking about the chronic offender for properties and being similar to the chronic violent offenders, would that be like basically like a situation table that we learned about from the RCMP? Was that, yeah, at UBCM? Where, have you heard of that?
In regards to like the group
Kind
meeting,
of the
you mean?
groupings coming together and,
Yeah, all
and
the representatives
identifying.
come down and they'll identify a list. As I probably skipped over because I explained it to the previous meeting. So that list needs to be a focused list of the highest priority sort of chronic offenders. So when all the representatives from all the police areas meet with Crown, sort of prioritize who are the highest offenders based on police files, involvement, and those types of details. So yeah, they'll all sit down, they'll identify the sort of the highest priority of the chronic offenders and then put them on the list and then go through. I mean, it's a process. These chronic offenders are provided with a letter advising them of all this. So I mean, there's a process of identifying them, getting them on the list, and then locating them and providing them with this information as to the designation.
And then from your report, would it be the total property CC metric that we would use to track this?
Yeah, that would be one of the numbers that I think we would see. It also deals with public disorder as well, right? Which can be classified in sort of these reports as unspecified assistance, mischief calls, those types of things. So the public disorder side of it may be a little more overarching, sort of more of an overall sort of number look, but really the focus of it is the chronic property offenses.
Right. And then on here, which would be the public disorder on the, would that be other? Or would it be on this report?
Well, those can even come from the check well-beings, the suspicious persons, unspecified assistance.
Gotcha.
Sometimes even a mental health related call could be part of that repeat property offense.
Okay.
So the public disorder ones can be masked in a whole bunch of different other reasons.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Councillor Benson. So I do have one quick question, and it's really concerning because the number that we're looking at is the total calls for service, and it's up almost 200 calls. So what kind of calls would that be, a call for service?
Well, any call for service is just that, a call to police to report something, and that ranges from a cat in a tree to one of the most serious criminal offenses there is. So calls for service is a good gauge of how much the community is calling police. So you see an increase in this. There's a bunch of different reasons why you can get an increased call for service. I don't think it's just my influence or my luck or me just showing up. It's more of the community. In some instances, I feel an increased call for service is an indication that your community is calling police, which has been a challenge in other communities I've worked in, is just getting people to call. Like Councillor Cashwell said, right? They just get apathetic and they just stop calling. So while an increased call for service is concerning from a resource perspective, I want to make sure that my members are taking their work, not getting overloaded with work and getting their own sort of wellness check. So I mind that, but I'm not totally upset with an increased call for service. To me, it's an indication that people are comfortable with the police and they're calling police. So it's kind of a double-edged sword when you see that number increase.
Yeah. Well, no, and I was just thinking like, and each of those calls, the RCMP respond to.
Yes.
So it is an increase in service.
Yes.
Being provided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an increased draw on the resources we do have. So yes.
Okay. Councillor Hanson has another question.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the $1 million question.
I will.
If we were to go down to UBCM and meet with E-Division like we do every year,
Yes.
and we have asked for more and more members and service and support, what would the magic number be that you would need to feel like you're fully staffed and adequate without having to use outside resources, overtime, pull from other areas? If you could have 1 body, 3 bodies, what would that magic number to make kind of you have a full complement look like?
It's a $1 million question because it has a million different answers, right? You give me a full complement now, I'm very confident that call for service number would go up because I'd have members with the ability to be proactive, to go out and drive some investigations, initiate some investigations, and not just react to phone calls coming in. The perfect number is, give me 100 members and I could do a whole lot, right? So obviously 1 or 2 more, like if we had the full complement here without any of the vacancies, right? I am fully confident that would be a well-staffed detachment in area, and we would still drive up those numbers for call for service, because those calls for services, that includes proactive work when my members go out and pull over a car and get the drugs out of the car or find an impaired driver. So you give the area more policing resources, I would expect that number to rise. So it's a tough call to drive the need for more members based on calls for service, because the more members you have, you should have more calls for service. So the challenge being is with the resourcing and the vacancies, both hard and soft, and having those filled. So that's the challenge. You go to UBCM and ask questions. I get asked those exact same questions afterwards. And yeah, I would never say that we couldn't use 2 or 3 more members. The challenge is filling those positions. So I think since I've been here, with the 2 recruits and the 1 lateral, the hardest ones to fill sometimes are those hard vacancies, the actual vacancies. So I think E-Division and the province, I think they've kind of heard the concerns and the fact that there was a drive to give us recruits, and there was a significant sort of staffing initiative run by the staffing sergeant to really push and go find a lateral to bring in. So I think they've done as much as they can from that end. But as for hard numbers, as I walk around your question with an answer, yeah, I would never turn down 2, 3 more members for sure.
Okay, well, wish us luck in September when we go down and meet with the ministry. So yeah, we'll definitely bring that forward. Is there any other question from council? Thank you so much for being here today and taking the time.
I appreciate it anytime. And like I say, I open any of you have any questions or want to discuss this anytime, you know where to find me.
Okay,
Awesome.
great. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Thanks.
Okay, are we ready for our Zoom meeting?
We'll try one more time.
Okay.
She was going to try and attempt to call in. We'll have to move on, Your Worship. This delegation was just to provide a little bit more information on the grant that is later in the agenda, but she did provide the materials there. However, it was an opportunity for council to ask any questions. We'll keep trying, and we can try and reschedule it within the meeting if we can before that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to the departmental reports. We have Public Works, and Jared Miner is here today.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, thanks for having me today. I'll give a kind of as concise update for the full municipal services department as I can here for you. In terms of some key accomplishments for this last period, for the last month, Beliski Park upgrades are now complete. So we had them done fairly in time, but in time to support the provincials, which primarily were this weekend and going on into this week. So far, the feedback is that it's been excellent and it's actually survived quite well over the busy weekend. So good news for everyone. In terms of operational updates, we've seen a recent wave of increased vandalism in terms of graffiti. Where it comes to my desk is generally where it impacts our memorial benches and our memorial plaques. We're trying to take a pragmatic approach in terms of addressing them, but it certainly is increased over the last couple periods. A healthy number of capital projects ongoing. McBride and Fifth water and sewer upgrades. That work is on track for completion near the end of August. I'd be remiss to not note that we have had 3 unplanned water outages to date, which has impacted a very large number of residents. This, although obviously frustrating for residents, is a very strong indicator of why the work that we're doing is so important. We need better isolation and we need newer infrastructure in that area, and that'll happen by the end of August. Traffic calming at 2nd and Gopal, that is kicked off. There's signage up there already today. The contractor is mobilizing. Again, expecting that mid-August for completion. Covered staircase assessment also kicked off today, so a couple of good work starting today. So we'll have folks going through the area to go and assess the different staircases and see where they're at in terms of their structural integrity. TMC heat recovery project, something we haven't talked about in great detail for too long, but some exciting happenings there in the very short future. The rooftop units, which is kind of the last major portion to be installed, the frames have been installed. The roofing around them is ongoing, and we should see cranes within the next couple of weeks moving those units onto the roof. That project, substantial completion end of September, so another few months there. An exciting bit of equipment coming to Public Works. Our tandem hook truck is set to be delivered this week, so we're excited to see that come and see how we can utilize that in the near distant future. Our roof replacement at the RCMP detachment, thankfully no complaints from Staff Sergeant today with the additional folks in their parking lot, but that hit 25% completion last week, so moving along well. Brief update on the BC Transit Exchange. That tender had been extended 1 week and closed today. Very excited to see what the response was. There was a lot of downloads of the tender, so we're hoping to see a strong response. In terms of timeline, they're expecting to be able to award prior to the end of August and hoping to mobilize a contractor mid to end of September. I will certainly note that will be a bit of a challenge, especially if they have a lot of people submitting. Looking ahead, just want to put everybody's mind to the fact that our talc facility will be in shutdown starting here in the first little bit of August. So that's one of those big ones coming down the pipe. That's all I had for an update for this period.
Any questions for Public Works? No? Okay. So next up, we have Parks and Recreation, and we have our General Manager of Municipal Services, Jared Miner.
Apologies, Your Worship, but that was included in the previous update, so we can keep on going.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay,
you.
We're going to try one more time. I believe she has her hand up and ready to present.
Hello, I'm Barb Stewart with Medical Arts Health Research. Am I being heard? Thank you for your patience. Hello? This is Barb Stewart from Medical Arts Health Research. We are coming to Trail with a Memory Cafe on Wednesday, September 9th, to the Trail Memorial Center, Victoria View Room.
We will move on. Apologies for that.
Hello, this is Barb Stewart. Am I unmuted?
We are going to move
Hello?
on to the staff reports, and we have a recommendation before us, and that is that council consider and resolve to receive for information the bylaw services monthly report for July 2026, the building department report for July 2026, a report on invoices paid for municipal services for June of 2026, and the grant summary report for July 15th, 2026. Thank you. Any questions or comments on that before we move to the, okay, all those in favor? Oh, hold on a sec. Councillor Benson has a question.
Just a question on the grant summary through the chair. The Memory Cafe appears on, right, okay, it's on the second page. There's the rental waivers and cash grants, but then the page 3 has the rental waivers, and I don't see the cafe on here. Should it be on page 3?
It has not been approved, so it wouldn't be in the final grant tracking.
Okay.
The first 2 pages just show what the grant would look like in terms of all the other requests, and then if approved by council, it would show up on the third page at your next update.
Okay, gotcha. It's the 2,000 is listed twice. If you look on the first page of it and then the second page as well, and then also the room waiver. So I just got confused on that. Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Okay, the recommendation is before you. It's been first and seconded. All those in favor? And that was carried. Thank you. We're moving on to the 2026 second quarter financial report, and I believe that, oh, thank you. Kelly will be doing that report for us.
I'm not as tall as Staff Sergeant. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Overall, we are tracking as expected and remain comparable to the same time last year. I just wanted to mention a few items to note. TMC revenues are higher than last year, particularly because the facility was under renovation last year, as well as we have extended the ice surface time. The full financial impact of that extended season is expected as being more noticeable in the third quarter. Utility costs have also increased because of this, and again, they will be higher throughout the summer. You'll see water service rates revenue are up. Part of that is due to the annual increase, but also because of the elimination of the water parcel tax, which has been incorporated now into the water rates. And transportation expenses are slightly higher than last year, but remain below budget. Like last year, reduced snowfall and reduced need for snow removal during the first part of the year allowed staff to be temporarily reassigned to work in parks and recreation. Just note that while the lighter snowfall has helped to keep the costs down, we don't know what's going to happen in November and December of this year, and so more snow could end up getting us closer to budget. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions from council? No, I don't see any today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the recommendation is that council consider and resolve that the 2026 second quarter financial report for the 6 months ended June 30th, 2026 be received for information. Oh, Councillor Hanson has a question.
Apologies, sorry, late question. And of course, it's because we just had protective services here. So wondering where we're at for protective services halfway through the year and what the budget is for 2026. Is that due to us, where their beginning of the year started in April for them, their first fiscal year, or is that we haven't been billed yet, or?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, their fiscal runs a little bit different than ours. We haven't received the final billing for last fiscal, so we haven't done a full reconciliation on the costs or what our expected costs are going to be. And so we'll be able to see that a little bit more clearly once we get that.
That's it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, the recommendation is before you. Is there a first? Thank you. And a seconder? And all those in favor? Thank you. That was carried. Unsightly premises at 3360 Laurel Crescent. And we have a report from the Manager of Legislative Services, Sandy Lucchini, regarding the condition of the property located at 3360 Laurel Crescent.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you will see, Council, we have a series of property issues for consideration for you today. The first one is 3360 Laurel Crescent. The property fails to meet the standard of the unsightly premises bylaw, and photos have been provided for you. The property owner was requested to perform the work and has not done so by the required date. Accordingly, the resolution is before you. We are asking for a shorter compliance because this property is a repeat offender and primarily deals with vegetation overgrowth, which is unsightly to look at, and we would like to get that cleaned up as soon as possible. In addition to a 14-day compliance, we're also asking that it be brought forward later this evening for final approval.
Okay. Any questions before we move on to the, go ahead, Councillor Hanson.
Just a question, and this is, thank you through the chair. Ms. Lucchini, is the individual that owns the property residing in the property, or is this a tenanted property?
The individual owns the property. The property owner lives in the property. Yep.
Okay, so the recommendation before you is that pursuant to the provisions of the unsightly premises bylaw number 2669, 2008 is hereby resolved that the owner of lot 19, Plan NEP 9512, District Lot 4598, Kootenay Lake District, PID 013-068-342, be notified to remove the overgrowth of vegetation and the accumulation of discarded materials and other debris within 14 days of receipt of the notice to do so, and further that that be further resolved that the corporate officer of the City of Trail be authorized in default of action being undertaken by the owner within 14 days of the notice to do so and to carry out and have such work carried out and the expenses charged to the owner. And if unpaid by December 31st, 2026, the expense shall be added to and form part of the taxes payable on the real property as taxes in arrears. And a seconder, please. All those in favor? Thank you. That was carried. And we also have a report for unsightly premises from 1050 Green Avenue.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, we have another property that fails to meet the standards of the unsightly premises bylaw. The property is located at 1050 Green Avenue. The property owner has been requested to clean up around the premise and has failed to do so by the required date. You will note in the photographs that there are such things as children's toys in the photographs. Those aren't part of the removal order. It's just mostly the broken and discarded items that are mixed within. So if you could please consider the resolution that's put before you.
Thank you. Any questions on this one before we move to the resolution? Okay, the recommendation is that pursuant to the provisions of the unsightly premises bylaw number 2669, 2008, it is hereby resolved that the owner of lot 4, block 31, plan NEP 465A, district lot 230, Kootenay Land District, PID 009-512-373, be notified to remove the accumulation of discarded materials, namely tarps, wires, metal, plastics, wood, broken items, and other debris within 30 days of receipt of the notice to do so. And further, that be it further resolved that the corporate officer of the City of Trail be authorized in default of the action being undertaken by the owner within 30 days of notice to do so, to carry out and have such work carried out, and the expenses charged to the owner, and if unpaid by December 31st, or unpaid on December 31st, 2026, the expenses shall be added to and form part of the taxes payable on the real property as taxes in arrears. Thank you. And thank you. All those in favor? That was carried. So unsightly premises for 1415 Lookout Street.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, a third property for consideration as unsightly is the property located at 1415 Lookout Street, which currently fails to meet the standard of the unsightly premises bylaw. The property is currently vacant and has been for quite some time. And at this point in time, we have a condition where there was some wildlife accessing the property. So the first resolution that you're requesting is that we be able to clean up the garbage that's been strewn throughout the property. As you can see from the photograph, it's primarily strewn garbage that we'd like to pick up. So if you could please consider the resolution before you with respect to the unsightly premises bylaw.
Thank you, Ms. Lucchini. Any questions before moving forward? Okay, the recommendation is that council consider and resolve that pursuant to provisions of the Unsightly Premises Bylaw number 2669, 2008, it is hereby resolved that the owner of parcel B, lots 5 and 6, block 61, Plan NEP 1119, District Lot 230, Kootenai Land District, C 243351, PID 008-526-893 and 008-526-907 be notified to remove the accumulation of discarded materials, namely strewn garbage and other debris, within 30 days of receipt of the notice to do so. And further, that it be resolved that the corporate officer of the City of Trail be authorized, in default of the action being undertaken by the owner within 30 days of notice, to do so, to carry out and have such work carried out, an expense charged to the owner, and if unpaid on December 31st, 2026, the expense shall be added to and form part of the taxes payable on the real property as taxes in arrears. Seconded, thank you. All those in favor? And thank you, that was carried. An unsecure premise at 1415 Lookout Street. Ms. Lucchini.
Thank you. The second item for consideration regarding this property is that when bylaw enforcement attended the property to deal with the garbage that was being placed in amongst the yard, it was noted that the property the front door was wide open. And then the next day, we subsequently received a report that there were actually bears inside the property by the neighborhood. So we had to have a conservation officer immediately dispatched. So tonight, we're just asking you to declare that it is a hazardous condition for the neighborhood. And if you could make that order, we'll ensure that it is properly secured going forward. As I mentioned in my previous report, the property is vacant and we are unable to locate the property owners at this time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lucchini. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Benson.
Thank you, through the chair. Just curious on this one, Ms. Lucchini, the final pages, is this supposed to be in the report?
It was an attempt to show you how, our attempts to find the property owner.
Okay, thank you.
Which have been extensive.
Okay, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, so the recommendation is that council declare the dwelling located on the property at 1415 Lookout Street, legally described as parcel B, lots 5 and 6, block 61, Plan NEP 1119, District Lot 230, Kootenai Land District C 243351, PID 006-526-893 and 008-526-907 be a hazardous condition pursuant to Section 73 of the Community Charter. And further, that corporate officer of the City of Trail be authorized to secure the dwelling with the expense charged to the owners. And if unpaid on December 31st, 2026, the expense shall be added to and form part of the taxes payable on the real property as taxes in arrears. Thank you, Councillor Hanson. The seconder, please. Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. That was carried. Okay, today we also have an update from the Animal Control Bylaw Amendment update, and we have a report from our General Manager of Corporate Services providing an update on activities related to possible amendments to the Animal Control Bylaw number 2970 for the inclusion of keeping hens in the municipality. Mr. Moorhead, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be brief. So as council recalls, there was a resolution made to investigate the inclusion of a hen amendment, or the keeping of hens, to our animal control bylaw. In that time, staff has been working on best practices and what an amendment would look like coming forward to council. However, in those discussions, we also thought it would be best practice to do some community engagement on this. And that community engagement would be twofold. One would be to understand the want and or need of the community for the including this within our animal control bylaw. And further, if there is a want and need, we would hope to gather some information on what the community would like to see in terms of those regulations in keeping hens or backyard hens. And so that would also help define what we would bring forward to council for those amendments and how we got to that information, and also in consideration of the best practices that are out there, and also neighboring or other municipalities that have instituted something like this. And so I just wanted to bring this forward because it was brought in February. And so just wanted to give council an update based on staff workloads. We don't have a timeline on when we would bring that out, but we would hope through, kind of Q4 and into the new year, that would be something we could gather and then bring forward to council at that time. And so you're just receiving this report for information, but just wanted to give council that update. Thank you.
Councillor Cashel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moorhead. Through the chair, staff will include the development of engagement materials as time allows. Can you kind of maybe expand on what that might look like to encourage that kind of engagement with the community?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. There's various ways of doing it, and they're more accessible now for communities to try and provide community engagement. Through different types of media, there are platforms out there that do not cost anything that you can provide online surveys that the community could participate in. But further to that, if those are not comfortable completing them online, that can be buttressed by paper copies. That just creates a little bit more work in correlating the data, but it is a possibility of having those two medias and methods to gather as much engagement as we can. Further to your question, Councillor Cashel, as we work to develop that community engagement, that will become more clear on what the best, whether that's a quote unquote Survey Monkey or Google Forms or those types of things done through the website and or paper through our facilities, through City Hall, Aquatic and Leisure Center, those types of facilities where patrons do attend.
Go ahead.
And just a final question. Thank you, through the chair. You mentioned that this will probably be coming to council next term, so safe to say that it'll be the next council that will be looking at this possible amendment. Is that correct?
Thank you, through the chair. Just looking at current workloads, I would say yes, it would be into the next council term.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cashel. Is there any other questions? No? Okay. So the recommendation is that we receive the animal control bylaw amendment update report dated for July 20th, 2026 for information. Thank you. Second, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. That was carried. Up next, we have our Council Remuneration Review Committee report. And Mr. Moorhead will be introducing the final report today.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm very proud to present this report on behalf of the Council Remuneration Review Committee. We do have one member in the gallery, Mr. Bradford. Obviously, with an early start today and busy schedules, we were unable to have the other two here today. But at the top, I do want to thank all three of them for their work through this committee. It was new to the City of Trail, so it was also new to the committee members, so it was something we worked through, and we had some great conversations, and a nice report that at the end of it, and I'm here to introduce that and hopefully answer any questions that I can. As council is aware, through the council indemnity bylaw, council at that time decided to move forward with a review method that is to use an independent third-party task force or a select committee to do that remuneration review prior to the end of this council's term and the new term of a new council coming in. That way they are making a decision not necessarily for themselves, but for the incoming council. This was set out within the bylaw and is a best practice through the UBCM remuneration guide. And in doing so, the terms of reference were created earlier this year. Solicitations to the community were procured, and we found our 3 members, and we began working as a committee to answer some questions as it relates to council remuneration. Just as a high level for the report, there was 2 different areas that the committee looked at. One was base indemnity or remuneration, the annual salary that is paid to members of council, both mayor and council, and also the policies that define other expenses such as travel, delegations to conventions and conferences, and how those expenses are paid. And so with those lens and the lens of transparency and accountability through funding, and also trying to consider the workload that is involved for members of council, not only the ones that are easy to ascertain through meetings, but also other items that members of council have to try and provide during their terms. And so with that, the committee has recommended 5 recommendations for council's consideration. The first 3 you'll note are based on council's indemnity and what that would look like. Again, I just want to note there's a little discrepancy within the meeting minutes and the final recommendation. That is because the initial recommendation coming out of the committee was for November 1st. After reviewing the bylaw, it stated that any increase in indemnity would take effect at the inaugural meeting, which is November 9th. So that change is just made to reflect the bylaw. The third one is just to carry on the CPI increase every year until the next review, and to see if that changes again in the 3rd year. You'll see in recommendation 4, the committee determined that it might be more prudent to conduct this review a little bit earlier than we did this time. So we would look to change the terms of reference, and that would be done in the 4th quarter of the 3rd year of the council's term to get these answers a little bit more quickly. And lastly, when we discussed policies that were in place, the committee thought the current policies, especially around expenses and travel expenses, and those were quite adequate. But what they did want to consider was adding a childcare expense benefit for members of council to try and generate interest, but also changing, circumstances and what they wanted to make the recommendation that council bring this forward. I will just note that if council does approve that, staff will bring forward a change to the policy outlining what those processes would look like, any kind of actual hourly expense, and based on other policies that are out there or best practices that council will approve. But that recommendation would let staff look into that and bring something forward. Another note in the report, and based on that childcare expense, I just want to highlight that the province is looking at changing the community charter to include a parental leave for council members across BC. That has received first reading, but will not be taken up again until the next sitting. But what that does do is allows members of council to take a parental leave up to I think it was 26 or 27 weeks without any kind of recompense about missing meetings or anything like that. So there would be language within the community charter that is amended, but also that they could retain their indemnity, their remuneration during that time that they're on their parental leave. So the province is also taking steps to consider different items like this. Again, I just want to thank the committee for coming together. We are going to have one more meeting in August following the next council meeting. And that is more for staff's understanding of what went well during this committee review, what could be better for the next time, just because this was new to our community. I just want to make sure moving forward we have as much information for instituting this again and getting the most out of it for those committee members. So with that, I will leave it to the floor if Mr. Bradford has anything to say. But I do want to thank Mr. Bradford, Mrs. Fraser, and Mr. Pryor for their time and commitment to this through the process. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moorhead. Is there any questions or comments from council on the report? No? Well, I just want to say that I really appreciated the report. Talking about council remuneration during my time on council is always difficult because it's difficult because it's something that we know that is sensitive within the community. And so having this report and having it laid out the way it is, I think it's very respectful and it's very transparent as well. I want to say that what I really appreciate about this, and is something that I thought of even when I was younger, is the childcare expenses. I think if we're wanting to get the younger generation involved, I think it's important that we provide that kind of expense for them because it is expensive to get childcare and be able to come and do the work that council does during the day, and even for our meetings, I think it's really important. And also excited about the parental leave that could happen that they have in the first reading. We know counselors that have children and have come back to the meetings right away and not taken that leave. And I think it's important, and we all know it's important, that bonding take place in the first 6 months of a child's development. And so that's all part of it when we're looking at having a healthy and vibrant community. We need to have that kind of conditions in place so people from every level will, be part of council. I also think that this report does really demonstrate transparency for the community. So I really appreciate that too. And I really want to thank the committee members that were involved in it. And I know it took some time and energy on your part, but for the first report of this committee and the first time we've done this, I think it's a really detailed report that, it will help councils in the future as well. So really appreciate the work that was done on this. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Hansen.
I definitely want to thank the committee's work putting this together outside of us. Doing the homework and research and just seeing kind of where we're sitting with in alignment to our neighboring communities, seeing that we're kind of right on par with all of our neighboring communities now. I put my hand up to run as a city councillor because I wanted to make a difference and see change, not because we got paid to be here. So I really appreciate the work and the that everything that went into it. I would not be supporting a couple of the recommendations for the increase. However, I would like to see the childcare report added for childcare expenses. Doesn't affect me so much because my kids are old enough that they can stay for a little bit here and there and they're in school, but I would love to see those that have young children that are home with them being able to, have childcare to be able to attend meetings and whatnot if they're sole household providers or if they're, their spouse works away, that they are able to have someone that can help them out so that they can attend and do their volunteer and meetings and whatnot. So thank you so much, everybody, for their work.
Okay, any other comments? So we'll move on to the recommendation, I guess. So council consider and resolve that Council approves the following recommendations outlined within the Council Remuneration Review Committee report. That the base annual indemnity for the office of mayor be set at $43,000 annually, effective November 9th, 2026. That the base annual indemnity for the office of councillor be set at $21,500 annually, effective November 9th, 2026. The base indemnities then carry forward with an automatic annual increase equal to the BC Consumer Price Index, the CPI, for the 12th-month period ending November 1st of the previous year, continuing in 2027 and in each year until the next review. That the terms of reference for the Council Remuneration Review Committee be amended such that the Select Council Committee is formed in the 4th quarter in the 3rd year of a council's term. And that Council directs staff to amend Council Policy GG 005.3- Councillor Expenses to include a childcare expense benefit and proposed processes. Thank you, Councillor Cashel. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Did you have any question or comments, Councillor Hanson?
No, because they were 5 recommendations within. The only one that I was going to support would be the councillor expenses. So the rest of the recommendations, I do not support the other ones about the increase in the salary.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation has been moved and seconded, and it has been carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is and thank you once again to the committee for the work that you did, Mr. Bradford. The next item on the agenda is the proposed development variance permit. Thank you. Sorry, 3290 Lilac Crescent, and we have a report from the Manager of Planning and Climate Action, Chris, regarding the application from the property owner of 3290 Lilac Crescent for a reduction to exterior side yard setback.
Thank you, Mayor and
Go
Council.
ahead.
The first application before Council today is a development variance permit application for 3290 Lilac Crescent. A bit of background here, the applicant had previously constructed a 12 square meter accessory building without a building permit. Upon enforcement, it was noted that the constructed accessory structure was located within the allowable exterior side yard setback area. Staff note adjacent to the property is a park access to Queen Elizabeth Park. The zoning bylaw restricts the placement of buildings or structures within 4.5 meters of the exterior side yard, or 16.4 feet in a separate metric. In this case, the applicant had constructed this covered structure at 1.5 feet from the property line, parallel to their existing garage. The owner has stated that the intent to construct the covered structure was to redirect stormwater pooling in front of the garage and in severe events actually infiltrating their garage. Staff have assessed the proposal and recommend conditional issuance of a variance permit. The condition being that the applicant must construct a rock pit drainage system on site and direct any stormwater captured from the new structure within the system to ensure no negative impact to the adjacent public access. Adjacent neighbors within 50 meters were notified as per our procedures bylaw and local government act requirements. To date, limited comments have been received and no concern was expressed with the structure siting. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Thanks for that. You said he built that first structure without a building permit. Any consequences for that?
Through the chair, the building inspector has gone to the site and essentially they're retroactively going through the process, but before they can actually proceed through the building permit, they need planning approvals. So hence this development variance permit coming forward.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, the recommendation for council is that the City of Trail authorize the issuance of a development variance permit number DVP 26-03 for Lot 21, Block 3, District Lot 4598, Plan NEP 25511, located at 3290 Lilac Crescent in Trail, BC. All those in favor? Thank you. That was carried. And then on to 430 Olivia Crescent.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is another variance permit application for 430 Olivia Crescent. A bit of a different story here versus the last application you just heard. The applicant has not proceeded with any construction as of yet, but is hoping to extend a roof from their front entrance westward to cover the stairs and patio area. The house and patio are already located within the front yard setback area, which are likely legal non-conforming structures. However, adding a further extension under the current setback restrictions would constitute new construction and thus requires a variance to current setback regulations. This proposal would require a setback reduction from the front property line from 5 meters to 2.75 meters to follow the existing setback infringement. So there will be no further setback versus the existing structure. Adjacent neighbors within 50 meters were notified as per our procedures bylaw and local government act requirements. No comments have been received from the public, and staff are not anticipating any adverse impacts from this construction. Staff are recommending approval to issue the proposed development variance permit, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? No? Okay, we'll move on to the recommendation then. And the recommendation is that the City of Trail authorize the issuance of development variance permit number DVP 26-04 for Lot 10, Block 3, District Lot 367, Plan NEP 2011, Kootenai District PID 013-994-468, located at 430 Olivia Crescent in Trail, BC. Thank you. All those in favor? And that was carried. On to 3775 Dogwood Crescent.
Thank you, Mayor. The last variance request today is similar, is a similar situation to our last variance proposal. The application pertains to 3775 Dogwood Drive. Currently, a single-story dwelling exists within the current front yard setback, side yard setback, and exterior side yard setback. This is likely another legal non-conforming structure. The new property owners are hoping to construct a vertical addition, being a second story, onto the house. However, this constitutes new construction within the current setback areas. The applicant proposes a vertical addition within the same footprint as the main story, requiring a setback reduction from 5 meters to 4.6 meters in the front yard, a setback reduction from 1.2 meters to 1.14 meters in the side yard, and a setback reduction from 4.5 meters to 2.98 meters in the exterior side yard abutting a park access. Current property height restrictions allow for 3 stories up to 44 feet, while this is an addition for the second story only. Any further proposal for construction would require additional variances and council consideration. Adjacent neighbors within 50 meters were notified as per our procedures bylaw and local government act requirements. No comments have been received from the public, and staff don't anticipate any adverse impacts. So today, staff are recommending approval to issue the proposed development variance, and like always, I'm happy to take any questions.
Go ahead, Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, through the chair. Mr. Buchan, just wondering, and this isn't particular to this specific home, I support this because it's the existing structure that's already there, but are our zoning restrictions and our setback requirements in line with the rest of the province? Because I feel like we get a lot of these, but I think it's, there's been so many zoning changes in the past and eliminating some side yards so that people can build additional accessory dwelling structures and having more buildability of a lot in alignment with the Bill 44 kind of zoning multi-use. Have you seen, are we in alignment with where we should be, or do you think some of these things should be amended in our zoning bylaws to allow for smaller setbacks?
Yeah, through the chair. I think it's a great question. I've worked in 3 communities now with 3 different zoning bylaws, and generally it does seem like it's in alignment. When you say the province, like the Ministry of Transportation also has a front yard setback for highways at 4.5 meters, so our 5-meter front yard setback is fairly close. 1.2 meters from the side yard, again, that's generally consistent, but I'm looking to reopen the zoning bylaw in the upcoming year following the OCP adoption, so that will be a bit more closely looked at, and any recommendations for reductions or increases, if it's incompatible there, will be brought forward to council.
Okay. If there's no other questions, then we'll move on to the recommendation, and that is council consider and resolve that the City of Trail council authorize the issuance of a development variance permit number DVP 26-05 for Lot 19, Block 3, District Lot 4598, Plan 4687, Kootenai District PID 014-881-195, located at 3775 Dogwood Drive in Trail, BC. Thank you. That was moved and seconded. All those in favor? And that was carried. Thank you. So we also have an application for rezoning at 8195 Old Juanita Road, and I'll get you to do that one too as well. Thank you.
Thanks for bearing with me, Mayor and Council. The last land use application before Council today is in the form of a request to amend a commercial property zone to residential R1 for 8195 Old Juanita Road. Council may be aware, but this property was previously a greenhouse operation surrounded by residential properties. It did generate some unsightly complaints in the past. However, the current property owner hopes to clean the property up and build a personal dwelling to live in. Whenever staff bring forward a rezoning request, recommendation is based on OCP policy. After reviewing, both the current and proposed draft OCP designate this property as residential, meaning there's full policy support for this request. The previous use and current zoning are currently not actually aligned with the OCP. Further, the requested use would be considered a less intensive use of the land, which is directly compatible with the surrounding property zones and uses. Because this rezoning request falls under Section 464 of the Local Government Act, where Part 3 states that a local government must not hold a public hearing if the sole purpose or over 50% of the request is for residential development, we are not actually allowed to hold a public hearing here. If council entertains the request to rezone and provide first, second, and third readings, staff will proceed with notifications and MOTT sign-off. While notifications have not been circulated as of yet, I have heard some support from a neighbor, just putting that out there. Staff are recommending that council proceed as recommended with the required readings so that we can proceed with the legislative notification requirements. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions from council? No? Okay, we'll move on to the recommendation, and it is that further that zoning amendment bylaw number 2978 be considered for first and second reading at the July 20th, 2026 regular council meeting. Thank you. All those in favor? And that was carried. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, we're moving on to the Trail Riverfront Center planned closure for some facility upgrades and some painting and doors being redone. And go ahead, Mr. Moorhead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can speak to this quickly. As you can see, staff at the Riverfront Center are looking to close the facility for the week following Labor Day. That is to accomplish a number of improvements based on the received grant through the Trail District Library. And some of those improvements are the inclusion of automatic doors, sliding doors at the front of the facility, and then some additional items within the building, and staff have decided that with that amount of construction going on, it's prudent to close the facility to the public. It is important to note there is no staff being off during that time. They're going to take that time to reorganize, do a deep, thorough clean of the facility, and get everything ready for opening. This does not affect any programming or anything like that, just general access to the facility. Staff will work on communications leading up to this through website and social media notifications, and also at the facility to let frequent patrons know of the closure. Thank you.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Moorhead? Okay, so the recommendation is that council grant permission to close the Trail Riverfront Center from September 8th, 2026 through to September 12th, 2026 to conduct necessary accessibility upgrades and interior facility painting. Thank you, Councillor Martin. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you. All those in favor? And that was carried. And how nice is it gonna be to have new doors? That's gonna be great. Okay, moving on. recreation fees increase for 2026 to 2027. And we have a report from the General Manager of Municipal Services with respect to an increase to the fees associated with services offered through the Parks and Recreation Department.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it's
Mr.
that time of
Minor.
year again where we get to review our fee schedule. Staff sat down and reviewed the schedule in light of a couple of new offerings being offered moving forward. First of one being summer ice at the TMC. Second of all being the addition of additional conferencing capabilities inside of the Victoria View Room. So we've added some additional rates to allow for those types of activities. In general, we try to keep in line with our labor costs. I'm sure this is not the first time we've looked at this. This is not a cost recovery, more just a keeping up with where we're at. So we've suggested a generally 3% increase across the board. There are some subtle exceptions, one being the equipment charge-out rates at the TMC we left flat. We've also tried to encourage some local resident businesses to book our TMC ice facilities by incorporating a resident commercial rate, which is much more competitive than the non-resident commercial rate. So hopefully we can see some better adoption of the use of the commercial rate for the large ice at the Cominco Arena. Honestly, that's about it for the 30,000 foot view. Oh, sorry, one additional thing. So with the summer ice, we aren't necessarily going to be supporting as many types of events on the dry floor inside of the Cominco Arena. So we have pared down the offering to just what is known as now special events. We have the two costs listed there, the rental rate of the facility plus the cost to install and remove the dry subfloor. So, yeah, happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions from council on that? Go ahead, Councillor Benson.
Thank you, through the chair. Just clarity on some of the language of the report. It says approximately 3%.
Yes, through the chair. So in general, it is a 3%, but we also do round to be able to accommodate an even 10 cents for all of these rates. The other piece is, as I mentioned, some of the charge-out rates were not impacted. So like the equipment at the TMC, the tokens at the TALC did not change. Don't want it to be a 30-cent requirement for a locker token. So that's why the use of approximate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If there's no other questions, we'll move to the recommendation. And that is that council approve the revised fee schedule to reflect new services offered at the Trail Memorial Center and a general 3% increase to all fees defined in the Trail Recreation Fee Bylaw number 2782, and further that staff be directed to bring forward the required amending bylaw to incorporate the increase at the August 17th, 2026 regular council meeting. Thank you, Councillor Benson and Councillor Cashel. All those in favor? And that was carried. Moving on to the reports and other. Are we going to try the Zoom meeting again? No? Okay. So we have the Medical Arts Health Research and the DB Foundation for Health Research, and it's an application for a grant and aid. And the amount for the application was $2,000, and there's also a rental waiver for $400. Is there, sorry, go ahead. Oh, was it 500? Okay, sorry, I have down 400. Okay, so it's a $2,000 grant and aid and a rental waiver of $500. Is there any questions on the report and the application? No? Okay, if there's no questions, we can move on to the recommendation. And the recommendation is that the request from the Medical Arts Health Research and the DB Foundation of Health Research for a rental waiver for their use of the Victoria View Room and a grant in support of the Memory Cafe on September 9th, 2026 be considered for approval. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. A seconder, please. Councillor Hanson, all those in favor? That was carried. Thank you. And question period. Sorry? Oh, okay. Does anyone from the gallery have any questions? No, having seen none, is there anyone online?
I see 3 attendees online. If you have a question of council, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. So resolution to rise from the committee of the whole, please, and that council consider and resolve to rise from the committee of the whole. Okay, thank you. All those in favor? That was carried. And we need a resolution to exclude the public and recess the public meeting until 6 p.m. and immediately convene into a closed session. And the resolution is that pursuant to Section 90 of the Community Charter, the public be excluded from this portion of the meeting as the subject matter being considered relates to the following. The Community Charter Section 91B, personal information about an identifiable individual who is being considered for a municipal award or honor, or who has offered to provide a gift to the municipality on condition of anonymity. Community Charter Section 91L, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Community Charter Section 1L, discussions with municipal officers and employees respecting municipal objectives, measures of progress, reports of the purpose of preparing an annual report under Section 98, annual municipal report. And further, that the public portion of the meeting be recessed until 6 p.m. and further, that council immediately resolve into the closed portion of their meeting. Thank you. All those in favor? And that was carried. Thank you. Thanks for being here.